Okay, here we go. Trying this again. We are on chapter 2, Jehoshaphat the Yak. Isn't that great? So last night we started Tales from the Ark. It's a book my husband and I wrote a long time ago. We talked about the two polar bears. Remember, they found each other? Abraham and Sarah. Isn't that precious? They got on the ark. Abraham almost gave up, but what told him don't give up, keep going? He thought it was a rock, but it was a turtle. I love that. And who was giving Abraham a hard time on his way? The billy goat. Where is it? Oh, the billy goat. He kept saying, where are you going? Why are you leaving? But Abraham said, I have to follow God's voice. I think that's so sweet. And there's Abraham the polar bear. He's on the ark now with Sarah. And now we're going to talk about this guy, Jehoshaphat the Yak. Chapter 2 in Tales from the Ark. Here we go, if my voice holds up. A little help, please. The ark is sinking. That's the title of chapter 2. There was no doubt about it as far as Jehoshaphat was concerned. The ark was sinking. Jehoshaphat was eating a little straw and minding his own business when he heard a strange noise. Bloop, bloop, bloop. He looked into the empty stall next to his and saw water bubbling through a crack between the boards. You know, if you're on a big ark out in the middle of a giant body of water and you see water coming in from the bottom, you would get nervous. While the water bubbled in and formed a shiny puddle around his hooves, Jehoshaphat talked to God. Dear God, this is Jehoshaphat. I have been on the ark getting ready for the trip, but now I have a problem. You see, there's a hole in the bottom of this ark. If you would please send help, I think we need an ark repair kit. Thank you, God. Jehoshaphat already felt better. I feel better sometimes when I talk to God. Do you? I do. I talk to God all the time. Sometimes that's all I talk to all day long. Now I talk to you. So Jehoshaphat already felt better. He took another bite of straw, and as the water got deeper, a plan formed in his brain. But for the plan to work, he would first need to find Noah. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Jehoshaphat would have to move fast. Jehoshaphat walked as quickly as he could, his long flowing hair sweeping the floor as he moved. He moved along the bottom level of the ark, past the elephants and the camels and the horses, the polar bears. He nodded to the white creatures because he had never seen a polar bear before. And then he saw his cousins, the buffalo, until finally he was at the ramp that led to the second level. The wooden ramp creaked beneath its weight. His hooves clip-clop loudly. He would have made it to the top if it hadn't been for a hippopotamus. Sorry to take up so much room, said the hippo. His voice was tiny and squeaky. I know people with squeaky voices. His voice was tiny and squeaky, but his body was round and wide. No comments from the parents, please. As soon as I can find my stall, I'll be out of everyone's way. I've searched this ark from top to bottom, and I can't find my name anywhere. And this is somewhat of an emergency, so if you could please help me. Noah said, and Jehoshaphat said, what? Noah? Have you seen Noah? The hippo nodded. Only a few minutes ago, he was on the upper level. Look at the hippo. And Jehoshaphat the yak. I would like to help you, Mr. Hippo, Jehoshaphat said, but I have my own emergency to deal with right now. And as he started to walk away, Jehoshaphat noticed a giant tear spill from the hippo's eyes and ran down his big giant nose. Look at his tear. Please don't cry, the yak begged, and Jehoshaphat didn't know how to stop a hippo from leaking anymore. And then he knew how to stop an ark from leaking, but not a hippo. Listen, he said, with all the excitement that comes with a new idea, he said, this is important that I find Noah. How about if we search for him and your stall at the same time? Oh, thank you, the hippo whimpered through his tears. A wide grin, one that showed all the gaps between his teeth, it spread across his face. Then the hippo turned his head just a little and he listened. By the way, what is that bloop, bloop, bloop? That sound's coming from below. The yak's eyes bugged out. You'd better run, he said to the hippo, but the hippo was already turned and bolted past the goats, the gazelles, the foxes, the llamas, to another ramp that led even higher, all the way to the third level. He made such a wide turn that he almost tipped over and nearly squashed a pair of laughing hyenas, who thought this whole thing was hilarious, by the way. Fortunately for the hyenas, the hippo caught his balance and then thundered up the ramp, leaving Jehoshaphat way behind. Jehoshaphat finally caught up to the hippo on a narrow path between the stalls when they were stopped by a stinging little voice. Hey, watch it! The yak and the hippo turned at the same instant, and there, behind them, they almost knocked over two little gray, prickly porcupines. The porcupines rolled down the center aisle like a pincushion, at least until a wooden post stopped them. Mr. Porcupine got up, he rubbed the back of his head and said, Ouch! We would have preferred a handshake. So what are you guys doing up here anyway? Well, we're looking for the hippo's home, the yak said, and we're looking for Noah. Well, his home isn't up here, Miss Porcupine interrupted. Why not? Replied the hippo. Because, silly, said Miss Porcupine, smiling and blinking her long eyelashes. All you big animals are on the lower level with the polar bears. The lower level, the hippo and Jehoshaphat said at the same time. Say, sang Mr. Porcupine, do you think you could take my wife and me down to see the polar bears? Noah said if we ever get the chance, we should look at them. Noah? Jehoshaphat interrupted. Have you seen Noah? Yes, he was headed to the lower level. You must have just missed him. Now we're getting somewhere, the hippo shouted. Let's go. The hippo bounded across the ark's deck, scattering small animals to each side and creating a wide path between them so that Jehoshaphat could follow. Hey, what about us? Said the porcupine. We'll come back and give you a tour later, said Jehoshaphat, and he ran after the hippopotamus. When Jehoshaphat finally made it to the lower level, he was greeted by the smell of some very damp straw. Things are getting wetter down here. The smell of some very damp straw. Oh! He found a hippo chatting excitedly with the polar bear. He seemed to have forgotten all about finding his home. Jehoshaphat looked from one end of the ark to the other, but no sign of Noah. Sadly, he walked over to the stall where the leak had begun, and he started to eat some of the dry straw that was up a little higher. Bloop, bloop, bloop went the water. Why, he wondered, why would God allow Noah and his family to work so long and so hard to build an ark and then let it sink on the first day? Doesn't that sound like troubled times right now? Here we are, quarantined. We worked so hard for our houses and our jobs, and now all of a sudden we're worried that they're all going to be gone. Let's see what God does. And I have to get a drink of orange juice. It's really emergency. You should drink it. Okay, I'm back. All of a sudden, a startling clap of thunder. The hippo bellowed, That's it! Thank you, Jehoshaphat. You're a great friend. Jehoshaphat said, What did I do? It's my home. You found my home. The hippo looked up. Jehoshaphat followed his gaze. And on a board just about eye level for the hippo, at one time covered with straw, the yak had just eaten, was carved the word hippopotamus. The hippo turned completely around. He backed into the stall. He kept backing up until his tail bumped against the wall. Then suddenly, without any sort of announcement, his four squatty legs slipped out from under him, and with a thud, plop, he plopped to the floor. The whole ark shook. The hippo, totally covered, that tiny hole of water that had been bubbling up. "Oh boy," the hippo shouted. "This is so cool, and it's nice and wet and perfect. I think I'll just sit right here for a long while." He rested his head on the cool board. At last, he was so tired. He added, "I don't think I'm going to move for 40 days or 40 nights." The ark was saved. Jehoshaphat was so happy that he jumped for joy. Jumping Jehoshaphat. "Thank you for finding my home, Jehoshaphat," the hippo said. His voice already sounded sleepy. "And thank you, God, for sending a big ark repair kit," Jehoshaphat whispered. As the hippo slept, it seemed nothing could stir him from his spot, not even that not-so-little problem with Midian, the camel. So there's another problem coming. Look. And there's the ark again. Let's see if we missed any of the pictures, because look. There's the hippo. He found his spot. It's right where there had been water dripping and dripping and dripping. So no one knew what he was doing all along, because God knew exactly where they all were. Look, there's the hippo and Jehoshaphat the yak and Mr. and Miss Porcupine. Aren't they cute? They're the ones that got bumped into and went rolling down the hill. I just love these stories. And there again is Jehoshaphat the yak and Mr. Hippo. That is so good. Now we're going to chapter 3. By the way, I heard you could find these books, some of them anyway. There was a few on Amazon. These are so old. This came out in the year 2000, and I only have one left in my house because I've given all of them away. So I keep this in case I ever see grandkids that might want to see it. Okay, chapter 3. Good night, Gideon. Or maybe not. Oh, this is going to be a good one. Look at Gideon. Gideon is a beaver. Gideon the beaver. That's what this one is about. Look at his flat tail. That way. Oh boy, here goes a barge down the river making noise. I hope you can still hear me. I can't wait to get out and get on the river again. Except I don't have a boat. I might need a ark. All right, chapter 3. You ready? Gideon the beaver crawled deeper into the thick straw, but it would take more than straw to block out all the rattle, 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 rattle. That sound was coming from the stall next to him. When the sleeping camel next door breathed in, the noise wasn't so bad. Just a swooshing sound like wind blowing. And then through the holes in a stack of sticks. When he blew air out past teeth and gums and lips, there were knocks and rattles and whistles and clicks, the likes that Gideon had never heard before. Sounds like the camel is snoring. I used to hear my husband snore all the time. Does your parents snore? I bet your daddy snores. You might snore. I snore. Don't tell anybody. Okay, so here's Gideon the beaver trying to sleep. He's so mad, look, because the camel next door is snoring. Gideon pulled his head from the straw, since it wasn't doing much good anyway. He stared at the Midian the camel, who lay on a hump of straw in the floor next to him. The camel inhaled and then exhaled. Rattle, rattle, rattle. That's funny. I can't make a good snoring sound right now. My throat's tired. Once the rattle was so loud that the pitchfork Noah had leaning against some hay bale fell over. And another time, a stack of loose boards tipped over and crashed to the floor with a bang like a hammer. Except for the hippopotamus, no one was going to wake him up from his sleep tonight. The beaver covered both ears with his paws and disappeared deeper into the straw. Gideon, a voice called out, you have something you need to do. Oh, let me say that again. Gideon, a voice called out, you have to do something. Gideon pulled his head from its sleeping hiding place and saw a glowing bright spot in the air. It was a firefly, twinkling overhead. "Why me?" Gideon asked. "Because God has given you a special gift, the perfect gift to solve this problem," said the firefly. "But please hurry, because none of us can get any sleep around here." And then the firefly flashed away. "What gift?" Gideon called out after. You ever thought you don't know what gift you're going to have or how the Lord's ever going to use you in your life? And you might be surprised. Look, there's the little tiny firefly. Oh, can I turn it right? Backwards. Oh, here we go. There we go. Look, there's the little firefly. And there's Gideon trying to cover his ears. And the firefly says, "You have a gift you may not even know about." Oh boy. Gideon says, "What gift? What gift?" But the firefly was gone. "All I can do is chew wood," he said to the sleeping camel, as if the camel was paying attention at all. "How can I stop this?" Swoosh, rattle, went the camel. Gideon kept thinking and clicking his teeth, and before long, he had a plan. For Gideon's plan to work, it was important for Mr. and Miss Sheep to help out. "Now you just stand right here," Gideon told the two sheep, "and you don't move." "How long do we have to stand here?" said Mr. Sheep and Miss Sheep. Gideon thought about the question and said, "Well, until Midian wakes up." Midian was the camel. "This doesn't sound like a great idea to me," said Mr. Sheep. But Gideon was already snuggling up in his straw bed, and in just a few minutes, with the two sheep and their thick wool blocking all the noise that came from the mouth of the camel, the tired beaver finally fell asleep. But he couldn't get to sleep very long, because soon he was startled from his nap because Miss Sheep said, "Stop! This isn't working." "What's the matter?" said Mr. Sheep. Miss Sheep said, "What's the matter? I'll tell you what's the matter. The matter is, it's all over my coat." "What?" "Gideon, but you'll have to find someone else to do this job." And Miss Sheep marched off. She didn't want that hay all over him and that snoring and the drooling. I don't blame her. And with that, Miss Sheep walked off, leaving a long squiggly trail of camel sneeze on the floor of the ark as she walked away. In the meantime, Midian the camel, he just kept on sleeping. I wish I could figure out how that would sound. You breathe in the air, and then, I don't know. So tired and surrounded by all the funny noises, Gideon thought once again about what the firefly had said to him, that he had a special gift that he was given. With a click of his teeth, he thought about another plan. Only this one seemed much simpler. With all his strength and energy, and just a touch of bravery, he set about in a whirlwind up upon some old boards that he had found. His sharp teeth began to click and clack as he became a blur of fur. That's how fast he was working. Scampering all around the sleeping camel, his razor-sharp teeth cut and hewed the board so that the wood chips flew out in all directions. When Gideon was finished, he called out to the camel, "Hey, Midian, wake up and try this on for size." The beaver pointed to a lovely little square box with an egg-shaped hole on the side. "What is this?" the camel asked. "That," said Gideon, as he proudly swiped the edges of his front teeth with one paw. "This is a snore box." "A snore box? I never heard of it," said Midian. "A snore box? I got a snore box not long ago. It's called a CPAP machine now. And it is my dearest friend. And any friend who's trying to sleep in my house, they can hear me all over the place. Now I don't snore. Isn't that wonderful? So Gideon made a snore box for the camel. Look at it. Just big enough to stick his nose in. I think that's so cute. The camel said, "You just made that up. How does it work?" "Well, you just lay down facing this way," said the beaver, "and you stick your head inside the nose. You stick your head inside the hole." The camel did just that. "Okay," came the muffled voice of Midian, and Gideon could just barely hear him. "Okay, what?" "Now go to sleep." In no time at all, Midian fell fast asleep, and Gideon had to really listen to hear the slightest click or snort or rattle. The snore box worked. And then Gideon made the announcement. All the animals rejoiced, and every sort of bray and whinny and bark and bah. And I'm telling you, the firefly lit up the whole room in happy green glow. Gideon was happy too. But all he wanted to do now was rest. So he pushed and fluffed and piled his straw bed until it was the softest it had ever been. And with a big sigh, the hero, the one who had used his very special gift for God, sank deep into the straw and took a nice long nap. He would have slept much longer if it wasn't for the ferret, who ran back and forth across the floor and tripped over Gideon's tail a few times. Obviously, the ferret was upset about something. Wah, wah, wah. Isn't that good? So Gideon, the beaver, he found a special gift that he had, and he used his teeth to carve a box out of wood, enough for him to put his nose in there. The camel stuck his nose in the box. So even on the ark, they had a CPAP machine. I think that's funny. There he is again. Those were 2 good chapters. And coming up tomorrow, I should have started this when this whole quarantine started. Surely it'll be over by the time this book is done. Okay, chapter 4 tomorrow. Moses the ferret searches high and low. So there you go. There's Moses the ferret. So maybe if you ever find this book someday, we'll save all these videos and we can read them again over and over. That's what's great about the internet. There we go. All right, quick review because we have a few minutes left. I said I would just do these for 30 minutes. Look, there's the ark. Quick review. There was a little foreshadowing about the ferret, wasn't it? The 2 turtle doves, remember us talking about them. And we haven't talked about the zebra yet. He's coming. But there is who? Abraham the polar bear. I love that. And Abraham, that old grouchy billy goat. Abraham, who thought that was a rock, it was really what? A turtle. And he said, follow God. And Abraham followed God, even when nobody would listen. And he ran into Sarah, the other polar bear. Now Abraham and Sarah on the, and there's Jehoshaphat the yak, who can't believe it. He thought there was a hole in the ark and they were in big trouble, but it was there on purpose. And God knew all along who would need to cover the hole. The hippo. See, isn't that precious? There's the 2 porcupines that helped them find their spot. Jehoshaphat the yak and Mr. Hippo. Look at him. He's sound asleep. I heard hippos can hold their breath for a long, long time. Now, there's Gideon, the beaver, who used his special gifts to get that camel to stop snoring and slobbering on everybody. I rode a camel not long ago when I went to Israel. Look, and there's 2 sheep. I rode a camel when I went to Israel, or if I had a video of it, I would show you, because my pastor almost killed me. He was on the camel with me. And there he is with the snore box, a CPAP machine for the ark. And tomorrow we'll start on chapter 4. Good to see you. I hope you're having a good day. know that I love you and God loves you and He has a plan. Do not be discouraged. Play outside if it's pretty, if you can. Get some good exercise. Lay off the sugar a little bit. That's what I'm trying to do. Or I'm going to be as big as the hippo. Love you guys.